was a master storyteller, and a lot of the teachings he taught were in the form of these short little stories called parables. And in Luke chapter 15, he tells a series of parables. Now, at this time in his life and ministry, there are many people coming around Jesus, coming to know what it's like to follow after God. And some of those people did not look like the traditional religious, uptight types. And the religious leaders of Jesus' day were becoming a little bit nervous that Jesus was attracting kind of the wrong kind of crowd. And that's kind of the backdrop of the stories that he tells in Luke chapter 15. So he starts by telling a story about a shepherd looking for a lost sheep and leaving the 99 behind to go seek and save the one sheep that got away. He tells a second story about a woman who's looking for a lost silver coin and ransacking her house until she finds that lost silver coin. Like me looking for my wedding ring here recently. Erica found it, finally. Of course, the wife would be the one who finds it. And so the third story is one that should be very, very familiar to you if you have a background in church. It's the story that's often called the story of the prodigal son. But I'm going to point out to you that nowhere in the story itself does Jesus use the phrase prodigal son. In fact, when he starts telling this story, he tells the story of about a man with two sons. And so there are two sons in this story representing for us two ways to be lost and giving us a clue as to the one way to be found and come back home again. So, Luke chapter 15, starting in verse 11, we read this. And he said, this is Jesus teaching, there was a man who had two sons, and the younger of them said to his father, Father, give me the share of property that's coming to me. And he divided his property between them. Not many days later, the younger son gathered all he had and took a journey into a far country, and there he squandered his property in reckless living. Now, in any culture, usually if you are a parent, if you're a dad, you will give your kids an inheritance. When? After you die. This son, this younger brother, this young son is coming to his father looking for his inheritance early. Now, Jesus doesn't give us the setting of this story. He doesn't tell us what time of day. But I kind of picture it almost as if like the dad is laying in bed, waking up first thing to see his son standing over him. Do you know? Because if you're a father, you've had that experience probably dozens of times in the past where his son growing up, was standing by the bed. Hey, daddy, 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 can I get a drink of water? Daddy, 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 I had a bad dream. Daddy, 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 can I sleep in your bed? Only this time, he's not coming to him saying, Dad, 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 can I have a drink of water? I had a bad dream. He's saying, Dad, you're dead to me. That's the starting point of the story, where the young son said, you might as well be dead. Give me my inheritance now. And the pain that had to inflict upon the father to divide the property now, because why? If you were a first century man, where was your wealth? Not in the bank, land. Your primary form of wealth was in your land. For the father to give the inheritance to his sons early meant selling off a third of his estate at least to give to this young son. It meant that for the father to acquiesce to the son's demand for freedom, it meant the father had to tear his life apart. That's the emotional core of where the story begins, that this young son is so eager to be out on his own, so eager to do that, he wants his own father to tear his life apart. And what does he do? He takes that wealth and he goes into a far country. And so now the young son has experienced lostness in the far country where he squanders that property in reckless living. All right? It does not go well for the son. So look at verse 14. It says that when he had spent everything, a severe famine arose in that country, and he began to be in need. So he went and hired himself out to one of the citizens of that country, who sent him into his fields to feed pigs. and he was longing to be fed with the pods that the pigs ate, and no one gave him anything. What do you know about pigs for Jewish culture? They were unclean, they were unworthy, they were disgusting animals. They were the lowest of the low. In fact, some Jewish texts from around the time of Jesus said if you were a good Jew, but you ate pork, you would lose your salvation. You would lose your standing with God. In other words, like if you want to be right with God, avoid the BLT, like avoid the bacon cheeseburger, right? Like don't eat pork, don't do that. And here is this young son taking his father's wealth and going out to feed what? Pigs. All of Jesus' listeners would hear this and understand immediately that this was a man who had squandered the wealth and has now hit absolute rock bottom. And all the religious leaders who were listening to this story would understand, of course, no one wants to be like this young son who has squandered the wealth, hit rock bottom. This man has now become irredeemable in the eyes of good, devout first century Jews. That's the problem. He has ripped apart his relationship with his family. He has squandered the wealth. The father is no doubt humiliated at this point that his son is now off in a far country squandering wealth. That's where we're at. And the son is so desperate, so at the end of his rope, that he's looking around, looking at the actual food he's feeding to the unclean pigs and saying, maybe I need to have some of that. So his next plan, alone, penniless, friendless, the hope has run out, the money has run out, the blood has drained from his face. And he says this in verse 17. It says, when he came to himself, he said, how many of my father's hired servants have more than enough bread, but I perish here with hunger? I will arise and go to my father, and I will say to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Treat me as one of your hired servants. And he arose and came to his father. The phrase that he says here is actually derived, at least partially, from the Old Testament, the book of Exodus specifically. And he repeats the same phrase a few moments later, or a few verses later, in the presence of his father. So you can imagine this young son repeating and rehearsing this speech over and over and over. His only recourse now that he's lost everything, is to try and go back somehow, some way, and live at his father's place again, but not as his son, as a hired help. That's his plan. That's where we are. That's the tension that Jesus surfaces here in the first part of this story. And so what we have in our world today, as then, is we have a lot of people who live like younger brothers. A lot of people in our world today live like younger brothers who are lost in the far country. How do you know? Because many people shared a few elements with this younger brother. The younger brother was out there seeking freedom. His primary goal in life was to seek freedom, autonomy away from his dad. That's what he was all about. And we have this baked into modern Western American culture, where everything from Disney to college recruitment ads tell us that our greatest goal in life is to go out there and find yourself, make something of yourself, shirk off all of these strictures of family, religious ties, authority, and live your best life, live your truth, and experience all that life has to offer. What's one of the biggest songs on the radio today? The Pink Pony Club, right? Who knows the Pink Pony Club? Okay, I looked this up just for y'all, and y'all are letting me down. But it's a song about people leaving home and going and finding their dreams to become, what's the lyrics say? Where boys and girls could all be queens every single day, which means something different in the context of that song. The Pink Pony Club is an anthem for a generation, for a culture that is desperate for self-discovery and freedom and making something of yourself and achieving those dreams. Here's the problem. Like the prodigal son, like this younger brother, that'll never work. It'll never work. And the younger brother is unfulfilled by life as he has tried to construct it. See, the more that we treat ourselves as our own master, the more we become our own slave. And sooner or later, the hope will run out, the money will run out, the blood will drain from our face, and we're left realizing that all the freedom was itself a set of shackles. I love the 4th century writer, St. Augustine, because he lived this story. He lived as a younger brother. When his dad died, he left home to go visit Rome to experience all the pleasure, all the excitement that ancient 1st or 4th century Rome had to offer him. And after all the life of living it up with alcohol, all the life living it up in brothels, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, he concluded that the freedom I had was the freedom of a runaway. Anybody know the title of the book that they use in Alcoholics Anonymous? It's called The Way Out. The Way Out. Not merely the way out of addiction, not merely the way out of the grip of alcohol. It's the way out of our sense of self and our demand that we can own ourselves and create ourselves and be better people on ourselves. In other words, that for Alcoholics Anonymous, the way forward is to recognize that I can't do this on my own. That's similar to the younger brother. And so what he finds in himself is a longing for home, a longing for the last place he remembers finding safety, comfort, and security. That's his plan. And a lot of us today have this longing for this sense of place, of community, this place where we are secure and safe. And we're looking for it in everywhere we possibly can, and we still can't find it. That's this life of the younger brother, because ultimately, even though he's making the journey home, he is terrifyingly and disturbingly unsure of the Father's love. His only plan is to go back as a hired servant and not be his son anymore. The younger brother knows and understands exactly what he has done to his father and to his family. And for a lot of younger brothers today, a lot of those of us who live it up today, we find ourselves terrifyingly unsure that God truly loves us. I've done college ministry over the years, and a lot of college students go about their life in college as the young brother. The far country is the college dorm, okay? And the reckless living is all the things that come with it. Fill in the blank, right? And a lot of people who go through that and they come back to know God and they come to follow Jesus, they come to church every week, but they are terrifyingly unsure that God actually truly loves them. And there are people in our world today, in Madison County today, who are deeply unsure if God truly loves them because of what they have done in their past. Listen to how the story now unfolds. This is Jesus telling the story. At this point, all the religious leaders around are like, yep, he's getting what he deserves. Get him. And here's what happens in the story. The prodigal son is making his way home, and Jesus says, but while he was still a long way off, his father saw him and felt compassion and ran and embraced him and kissed him. And the son said to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. But the father said to his servants, bring quickly the best robe and put it on him, and put a ring on his hand and shoes on his feet, and bring the fattened calf and kill it, and let us eat and celebrate. For this my son was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found. And they began to celebrate. While the son was still a long way off, the father ran to greet him. You could almost imagine that the father is standing at the gate of his house, looking at that horizon, yearning and praying and hoping for that day that he sees his young son coming towards him. And what does the father do? He runs. He runs to go greet his young son. And in first century Jewish culture, if you were a dude, you didn't do that. If you were a good masculine man, you did not do that, because if you were wearing a long robe, as they did back then, to run, you had to hike it up, probably had like something slipping off your shoulder. It was a completely undignified mess for a man to go running. And that's what the father has done to his young son. And he is running to his son in this undignified way, leaving behind his 2 sandals that are like sliding off his feet. And he is grabbing onto his son with all his might and just thankful that his son is home. By the way, he embraces him and kisses him. When's the apology come? After. He grabs him and embraces him and kisses him, and the son hasn't even gotten out the rehearsed speech yet. And once he does, even after he does, the father is almost dismissive of this apology, saying, listen, no, we're having a party. We're having a party in your honor tonight. We're getting a robe, ring, fattened calf. Listen, I'm not a big farm guy. You might have figured that out by now. My fattened calf usually comes through the drive-through, okay? But if you were living in the first century, a fattened calf would be a pretty big meal. You would not do that unless you were inviting your family, your neighbors, or the whole town, because you didn't want to have leftovers in the fridge because you didn't have a fridge. So you would have a big blowout, a huge, just raging blowout for this son. And all the people in the community are going to come out and they're going to celebrate the fact that this son was once lost and is now found. That's the setting of the story. And listen, what Jesus is trying to get his hearers to hear and understand is that the same God who seeks after that one lost sheep, that same God who seeks after that lost coin, that same God is the God who greets his prodigals home. He greets the younger brothers back into the family, back into fellowship, back into relationship. Listen, he has gone out and he has broken every rule imaginable. He has gone out and slandered the name of his father and family. But God doesn't wait. He doesn't wait for everything to be put right again. He is running out to greet this young brother. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if the young son is coming home reeking of booze from his last bender or stale perfume from his last lap dance. The father is that committed to throwing his arms around that son and saying, son, I love you. Please come home. There's a second brother in the story. And I'd like to suggest to you that the second brother is actually the brother that Jesus wants his original hearers to focus on. Because the elder brother, is the one whose attitude is so in contrast to the story that we've just read. Look at Luke 15, verse 25. Now his older son was in the field, and as he came and drew near to the house, he heard music and dancing. And he called one of the servants and asked what these things meant. And he said to him, your brother has come, and your father has killed the fattened calf, because he has received him back safe and sound. But he was angry and refused to go in. His father came out and entreated him, but he answered his father, look, these many years I have served you, and I have never disobeyed your command, yet you never gave me a young goat that I may celebrate with my friends. But when this son of yours came, who has devoured your property with prostitutes, you killed the fattened calf for him. The elder brother is a contrast. It's the opposite of the younger brother. So if we look at these two brothers side by side, we find that there are some very significant ways that they're very different, but one way they are exactly the same. Now, here's how they're different. Where the younger brother was looking for freedom, the older brother was what? He was seeking credit. He was lost in the field, and he wanted credit for all the hard work that he had been doing. He's been serving his father, for years, he said. He wants credit for what he has been doing, and he is angry at life, maybe God, for the way things have worked out. It says that when the party is going on, he's not in the house. He was angry and refused to go in. I mean, he hears the story about how the young brother has now come back, and he's scratching his head, wondering why the party, where's the music coming from, Dad? Why, is the whole hired help thing off the table? I mean, is that still not an option here? He's wondering why in the world that he could be the good one out in the field, slaving away, and there's no party going on for him. See, some people in our world today are elder brothers. Some people in our churches today are elder brothers. And all of us can slide into that at some point or another and become elder brothers. Haven't we been obedient to God over the years? Haven't we been listening to God over the years? Haven't we done the things that we heard in the sermons over the years? Haven't we put money in the offering plate? Haven't we gone on mission trips? Haven't we been in church service? Haven't we lifted our hands in prayer during the worship service? Haven't we done all the things we were supposed to do? And when things don't go your way, you're not just disappointed, you're angry. You're angry that there are those around you who seem to have life better than you, and things have not gone. God has not blessed you the way you expected him to bless you for your lifetime of obedience. You have been lost in that field. And one other aspect is that you treat your younger brothers very harshly. Because when the younger brother comes back, what's the older brother say? He says, "This son of yours has squandered your wealth with prostitutes." By the way, in the entire story here, there's only one person who names the actual sin of the younger brother. It's not the younger brother himself. It's not even Jesus, the narrator. It's not the father. It's the elder brother. And one symptom of being a cold elder brother is that you are an expert at other people's sin. And this elder brother knew everything this younger brother had done, and maybe even some of this is made up. We don't even know. And he's like, "Dad, do you not realize what this young son of yours has done with that property, with that wealth? Do you not realize the women he's been with, the stuff he's drank? Do you realize what he's been doing, Dad? Do you know about the sins in his life? Do you know the kinds of things he's been doing? Do you know the movies he's been watching, the books he's been reading? Do you know who he voted for, Dad?" Because elder brothers love holding other people up to a righteous standard that they don't even meet themselves. And elder brothers love looking down on other people because they feel more elevated and more self-righteous as a result. See, there's a certain kind of person who slaves away for God and wants credit. They go through life with this dry, joyless, mechanical obedience. They're in church every single Sunday, and they are just slaving away, expecting blessing, and they are angry when they do not get it. And here's how they are completely identical to the younger brother, because both younger and elder brothers are deeply unsure that God truly loves them. So what's the elder brother say? The elder brother says, "Listen, I've slaved away for years. You never even give me a young goat. Like, you give a fattened calf for him? I'm just asking for like a chicken sandwich, Dad." He's not getting even the slightest thing, and he's worried that his lack of blessing and the lack of celebration here indicates that maybe God isn't truly on his side at all. Listen, if you are an elder brother, one of the symptoms that you may have is you may feel like, "Listen, I'm trying my best. I'm doing church. I'm doing the Christian life. I'm trying to raise my kids the right way. I'm trying. I don't know for sure that God really loves me." Or maybe he loves me. I know he died on the cross for me. I know all that. But does God actually like me? Does he love me for me? And the response of the father is a very simple one. He said to him, "Son, you are always with me, and all that is mine is yours. It was fitting to celebrate and be glad, for this your brother was dead and is alive. He was lost and is found." That's how the story ends. And interestingly, by the way, again, this story ends here, and we don't know exactly what happened in Jesus' story. We don't even know the reaction of those around. We're kind of meant to kind of let that story's ending linger in our minds, because at the end of the story, the young son who had gone away and just trashed his family's reputation is the one inside the house at the party. The son who had done all the right things, followed all the right rules, he's the one outside still angry and refusing to go in. That's where we're left. But the point of this story, the point that we're telling this story at Easter, is that there are two ways to be lost. You can be lost by breaking all the rules, or you can be lost while following all the rules. You can be lost while being a younger brother out there in the field, or out there in the far country, or an older brother out there in the field. You can be lost by trying to discover yourself, You can be lost while trying to build your own self-righteousness. The self at its core is what's poisoning your relationship with God and others. And what happens at Easter is that God shatters that to invite us all, elder and younger brothers alike, to be found at the Father's feast. That's the story of Easter, that the cross itself would be the invitation for us to be found at the Father's feast, that we can be as lost as we can possibly be, but God, in his infinite mercy, is inviting us back and pleading with us, please come home. If you are the younger brother out there living life the way you want to live it, please come home. If you are the elder brother in church every Sunday but not secure in the love of God, please come home. The cross is the only way out of that prison of sin and self. There's an old hymn that says, I must needs go home by the way of the cross. There's no other way but this. I shall ne'er get sight of the gates of light if the way of the cross I miss. Listen, when Jesus goes to the cross, he becomes the true and better brother. He is the one who goes to the far country, not to experience all of life's freedom, but to surrender his freedom to bring his children back. He is the brother who stays in the field, working and being obedient to God so that his righteousness can be credited to our account, that we can be clothed in the righteousness of Christ, that the ring on our finger would symbolize the way that Christ has achieved perfection for us, and we can lay down our burdensome quest to be right before God, knowing that he has breathed his last, it is finished for us. Easter, the resurrection of Jesus Christ, is the invitation to please come home, knowing that when Christ one day returns, he will prepare a feast that will rival all the fattened calves in the solar system. And that if we are secure in Christ, that we can come to know him and experience that feast, no matter how good we may have been, no matter how bad we think we've been, that we find our truest satisfaction in the love of a father who greets his prodigals and calls his children home. Amen? Father, you are our good Father. We know that we are so often steered wrongly by our wayward hearts. Lord, if we have tended to be like the younger brother, looking off into that far country of reckless living, we ask, Lord, that you would bring us home. If we've been like the elder brother, though, Lord, who is self-righteous and looking down on the sins and lifestyles of others, we ask that you remind us that your goodness prevails and that we are not good by our own standards, but only because of what you have done for us through your Son. Lord, if there's those in this room this morning who have not experienced the grace that's been poured out to us through your Son, Jesus, that we would make this a turning point, Lord, that we respond to your invitation to please come home, that we would come home not expecting punishment, but rather expecting the lavish grace that you poured out on us. Lord, forgive us the sins that we have in our lives. Forgive us the temptation towards self-sufficiency and self-righteousness. Lord, I ask if there's any people out there this morning with questions about this, they would seek out myself or Mike. But Lord, I also would just pause right now to have us just examine our own hearts, that there might be, that we ask ourselves if there's any tendency this morning to be lost as an elder brother or a younger brother. Let's just take a moment, Lord, and just search our hearts and remind us of any ways that we have been one of these two characters. Lord, I'm reminded of the old hymn, softly and tenderly, Jesus is calling, calling all sinners, come home. Lord, if there's anyone in this room this morning that doesn't really know where they are with you, I would ask that you prompt them to throw themselves on your mercy, to ask questions. or to even say this morning, Jesus, I'm a sinner, please save me. And that alone can be, as simple as it is, the start of a whole new life. Lord, give us strength this day, give us courage, but also give us hope, give us joy, give us happiness, that we know that we are secure in your love. We have been brought back home thanks to you, and we are eagerly awaiting the day that your Son returns to make all things new and to transform the entire creation into home. We pray all these things in your Son's name and by your Spirit's power. Amen.